Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. So today we're having a special episode with Nathan, and I'm so glad to have you, Nathan, with me today. And Nathan today is going to be my guest for the IKIGAI International podcast. And to whoever is watching us or listening to us for the first time, the Ikigai is a Japanese concept for finding someone's purpose in life. Everyone has a purpose in life. Sometimes we are aware of this or we're not. So here today we're going to discuss this with Nathan and see if Nathan has an idea about his ikigai or not yet. So maybe we're going to elaborate on this together. Hello, welcome Nathan. How are
Hi,
you?
Yousra. I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Nathan Waller, and I am the Academic Services and Marketing Manager and a teacher trainer for Macmillan Education in the Middle East and North Africa, or MENA. I'm hoping that I do have an ikigai, but I think it's going to be a work in progress. I think as we go through the questions and the areas of the ikigai, I think we're going to realize there's some complexity, I think, in finding an ikigai. But I'm excited to go on this learning journey with you.
Journey together. So thank you for accepting the invitation and thank you for being here today. So thank you. So the first question would be to ask you, Nathan, when was the moment? Like, when did you have that aha moment? You said, I'm interested in being in the field of education. When was this?
Oh, that's a really difficult question. My education wasn't a choice, I don't think, for me. It's something that I guess came around partly from a little bit of luck and a little bit of interest around the area. I was really interested in childhood, so I was really interested in how children learn and grow and these types of things. All the field of childhood is what I was most interested in, not necessarily becoming a teacher. The aha moment, I think, came, as I said, is a little bit of luck. So I wasn't the best student in school myself. I was a bit of a free spirit. I'm a bit of a person who believes that life is a bit like a kind of river. You either kind of allow yourself to kind of flow down the river and go wherever it takes you, or you're one of these people that likes to kind of stay in the calm, safe spots in the curve, and that's absolutely fine. And I think there are other people that kind of they're clinging onto a branch for dear life. They're kind of stuck where they are and they don't know how to let go. But I've always been the kind of person that's really like let life take me where it will, and seen, I guess, or allowed myself to see positivity in those experiences, whether or not the experience is a good experience or not such a good experience. They've always been learning experiences for me, regardless of what they've been. So I've experienced so many different things. I've traveled across the world, and it's not always been easy. People think that you have this wonderful life where you traveled the world and you've done all of these amazing things, and what they don't see is that there are really tough times in that. But I think we've been talking about growth mindsets, and I think the core of, or the foundation of, a growth mindset is allowing yourself to be open to learning, to seeing that failure is not the opposite of success. I think is a key one.
Lessons in disguise. Yeah.
Is that the lesson? Yeah, is that
Lessons in disguise. Yeah.
And lots of people do it. They say like, oh, I did this for a year and I failed, and it was a waste of my time. And it wasn't. It taught you something about yourself. So that I've always had that kind of mindset, I think. So, and that's helped perhaps. And I've always been a bit of an explorer. So I've always been happy to kind of go off. If I see a path, I want to go down it. If I see a tunnel, I'm like, I want to know what's in there. Say a mountain, I want to climb it. And this type of personality. So going back to the original question, so I did all sorts of things. My parents didn't want me to go to university because they thought I would just waste my time. So they come from a very working class background. So I got jobs. I worked in all sorts of different types of jobs. And eventually I moved to Manchester. So I'm from a very small town in the UK, very small, like 50,000 people maximum, I would say, in that town. And I moved to Manchester, which is second biggest city, I guess, in the UK. And I was living with some friends, and one of my friend's brother's wife was a year one teacher. And I think we were out, we were having a barbecue or something, and we were talking, and she said, I think you would just really enjoy working in schools. You clearly have this interest in childhood. So why don't you volunteer, come to my school and just do like a Friday morning, spend time, as a teaching assistant, helping out, getting involved, see if you like it. So I did at the beginning of the academic year. By the end of that academic year, I was volunteering probably 3 or 4 days a week. I was doing different classes. I did year 6. I went to the kindergarten. I then used that to network with other teachers. So I started doing voluntary work in a special educational needs school. And that was kind of my path, I guess, probably very similar to yours. You start doing it and you realize, I want to do more of this, and you eventually do more of it. And then you realize, actually, this is what I am doing. I then went back to university as a mature student, and I didn't do education. Again, I did childhood, and I did anthropology. So I studied culture. I was really interested in how kids experience the world differently depending on where they are born and grow up in the world, and how that influences how we think, who we become, all of these different types of things. That was my pathway into education.
Great. I have 2 questions actually, but I'm going to start with the first one following to what you mentioned. So you said that you've traveled around the world. I'm interested to know, where have you been? And the second question is that what was the most challenging situation you faced in your professional life, and how did you deal with it? So feel free to answer either one of them if you want. Or both.
So, and it's a shame you can't see this map because it's actually blurred out, but I like to put pins in the map of all the places that I've been. Traveled for working purposes in Europe, in the Czech Republic, in Egypt, across the Gulf. Here I'm in the UAE now, but I worked in Oman as well.
Tunisia.
Tunisia, I didn't work. I just traveled.
Oh, yeah, traveled. Yeah.
One of my travel destinations. I'm going to explore the pathway type of situations. In Asia, Vietnam, I lived. Malaysia, I spent some time doing teacher training projects. I did IELTS examining in China, probably some other places. When I worked in development, so I took some time out when I was studying anthropology to do development studies, international developments. So I spent quite a lot of time in East Africa, mostly Kenya. And I was working with street-connected children at that point. So that was really interesting as well. In terms of teaching, biggest challenges, I don't know, there's lots of different types of challenges. So when I lived in Malaysia, I was working on a government teacher training project, and it was in very rural locations. So there was the kind of challenge of very remote schools, often no power at all, very large classrooms, very cultural. I went with WWF at the time to some really remote islands between Malaysia and the Philippines, very disconnected communities. There was one where there was only like 5 families on one island, and their school on that island was just a whole bunch of families just in one school.
That's the community, yes.
One teacher taught all 6, primary grades, this type of thing. So that had its own kinds of challenges, how to support teachers in those types of scenarios. But then in terms of my own teaching, I taught in Oman. Again, I taught in a very rural location in Oman, predominantly boys, very boisterous, not a lot of respect for the female teachers. I remember starting in that school, and they would destroy the canteen, the lunch area every day. I saw them throw tables, food, so that was a very challenging working context.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of different types of challenges, definitely. But again, like I said, they all teach you something. And again, I was very determined not to walk away from that particular context. So, after like 2 weeks, it was like teaching them is like secondary to how do we organize what's going on in the school and get the kids to, behave in a responsible way. We need to tackle this before they're going to learn anything. So
that will
these
that was actually my next question. Yes, you can elaborate on that. What do you think are the set of skills that a teacher should have to face different challenges at that particular moment in their professional life?
Yeah, I mean, based on that, perseverance definitely is a key. Not walking away when it is difficult, and sticking through it, and understanding. I think that when you do stick with it, at the end, students really do thank you for it. They come back and they realize why you put all of that effort in. At the beginning, it seems like it's this huge burden and this huge challenge, but at the end, that hard work kind of pays off, and that perseverance, I think, pays off. I think in terms of other skills and qualities, people talk, a lot about kind of knowledge and the way that teachers should present themselves and these types of things. But actually, I think that's an important quality or skill for a teacher is to be inspirational. I think education is an inspirational field, an inspirational profession. And you need to be able to inspire different people in different ways at the same time, quite often. And then that's not an easy thing to do, but you've got to somehow find out who they are, what they're interested in, and then tweak and adapt what it is that you're doing to try and accommodate some of those things, and then giving them opportunities. We talk these days a lot about things like facilitation rather than teaching. So giving them opportunities to be able to express themselves and connect with other people. I think these are really important skills that we don't often get taught in teacher training courses. We get taught very methodological things, how to teach grammar, how to teach listening, but actually dealing with people as people, as humans, is a skill we probably learn along the way, I guess.
Yes. I will ask you a question now, but it's based on two different areas. The first one, can you remember a project that you work with your students, and it was challenging, but let's say the deliverables were very creative, like they have handed out a project and you were kind of surprised, and a challenging situation you dealt with a student with learning difficulties, if you had any, and how did you manage as a teacher to apply the differentiation and all the methodologies that we all know when it comes to adapting the learning experience to our learners? So a good experience and a not so good one.
Very challenging questions. Trying to think of particular examples on the spot. In terms of challenging students, maybe it's a personality, maybe it's an approach. I've never really found like, oh, this is a student that I'm finding really challenging in that kind of traditional sense. I'm thinking of one. So when I worked in Vietnam, for example, I remember one occasion where there was this one boy, and he didn't want to participate. He sat under a table at the back of the classroom, wasn't involved at all, wouldn't say anything, wouldn't even look at anybody. And I remember, I mean, culturally in that part of the world, it's really kind of frowned upon, and the teaching assistant really didn't like it. He was young. He was only probably around 6, I would say. And she was like, this boy, he just cannot be there. You have to make him be a part of the class. And I was like, you know what, just leave him there for now. Let's set up the other guys. Let's give them the tasks, put them in groups, and then you can, be monitoring these guys, and I'll go and, spend some time with him, a bit of one-on-one.
Yeah.
And it was just, me and him sitting under the table, like together, and trying to figure out
why he was there.
What it was that made him feel like he needed to be there under that table, and then kind of, coaxing him out and, okay, what would you like to do? Is there a person that you would like to work with? Is there a particular thing you would like you got to find a starting point. You know, is there something that you would like to do other than just sit under the table? You know, and I'll do it with you. I'll help you. You know, and then easing them in. I think when it comes to challenges, usually it's best to try to figure it out. What's the route? And the route can be very difficult. You know, depending on the context, because you don't know with students their backgrounds, their home lives. You've got teachers that are dealing with students who could be abused at home, and you don't know that, so you can't just force them to do things, but you also don't want to make it too personal for them, I guess. So it's balancing that
out. Yeah, there's a fine line between like understanding what's wrong with them, and sometimes he or she can feel that the teacher's being so close, and even the students can feel that. So we don't want to convey the image of favoritism to anyone in class. So, but we do that. So you remind me of a student of mine who was facing challenges when it comes to getting along with people in class, because he was hyperactive. And I still remember that particular student, he refuses even to sit on a chair. And what I did at that particular time, I know that the running dictation works as magic with everyone, all classes. So, and I applied it in my class, and now after every session, so he was asking every time, Miss, are we going to have the running dictation today? Because that's the adrenaline. So I play the Mission Impossible music theme in the background. It's like as if it's a Mission Impossible to complete the text. And then he was kind of a leader in class. So understanding our students, I think, is basic before even opening a book.
Yeah.
So
sounds like you found that hook. And another thing is helping, not just that when we think about that example, there's a student who's under the table. They seem like they're outside of the classroom. They're outside of the class. But actually, I guess this is part of a growth mindset, is saying that the classroom is not actually fixed. You were saying about seating. You know, I remember, so part of what we were doing with that boy was asking the other students if they wanted to work under the table rather than on the table. And some of the other
on the
students,
ground, I do it.
yeah, they were on the floor. And
on the floor,
so
yeah.
trying to show the whole group that actually we don't all have to be sitting on desks in lines to be learning. We could be doing it individually, in pairs, some of us in groups. We all work and think in different ways. And then figuring out which ones like that. And like I said, we're facilitating, we're navigating them towards the goals that we want to achieve with them. But there are lots of ways of achieving those goals, I think.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that the final point, the learning outcome, should be achieved. And the teacher is here to adapt whatever we learn. So it's not like just we get a bunch of certificates and that's it. So we talked about this previously. So it's like life skills plus academic skills. And it's how you use your emotional intelligence to deal with the learners so that they can like you, so that they can learn from you. So if they don't appreciate the person and it's like we're just teaching, writing on the board and that's it, memorize it, it's like just studying for the grades, studying for who is going to be the best. And so I think I've dealt with this in a particular learning environment where they don't use grades, but instead they use colors. So for example, if it's a good grade, that's green color. If it's less good, it's like orange, yellow. So, and the kids, they don't associate themselves with numbers, especially if they're young. So I think it's a good strategy to adapt methodology to learners, especially to young learners. And we're teaching human beings after all. So,
I guess I'd add two things to that, because
yeah.
I'm quite critical of the I guess systems and structures that exist within education. I do think there needs to be more emphasis on how do we give positive feedback, I guess, for the journey itself, and not just the end goal. And education, I think, struggles with that a little bit. It tries through things like projects and portfolios and these types of things can help showing the progress of learning over a period of time, rather than you passed a test at the end of the semester or year. So I think we can definitely make progress in that. But the other one that I think we focus on a lot less is is how we recognize in education students supporting each other. I think there's a real lack of an appreciation of the value of that. It's quite often just like they can't help each other because then they'll be cheating, or one will just do all the work. But actually, I think there needs to be a recognition of, and it can be very cultural. This came out when I lived in Oman, especially, is that quite often students didn't see things as cheating if they were giving other students
collaborative work. Yeah, they see it as such.
Yeah, but how do we build an education system that gives you rewards for helping others to improve? Is something that I think is very.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've tried something and I really like it, and I've applied it during the COVID period and even a long time ago. It's like by the end of the session, there's kind of a board. If it's in class, it's in class. If it's online, so I displayed it on a digiboard. So everyone has to write a positive note to someone in class, anonymous, and they just post it and sharing those positive thoughts. For example, and after this, they exchange between themselves. So, for example, if it's Selma who gave Amani, and I'm just saying, like I mentioned names as like by example, it's not necessarily true. So that is me. I think you're amazing. I think you're a generous person. So, and they started the exchange after that activity because they wanted their friends to know that they have that particular, let's say, characteristics in them. So they started exchanging their lunch together. So that positive reinforcement, what happened in class, apart from the feedback that we do it, peer feedback during the activity and delayed feedback and all the things that we do, like theoretically speaking, there are kind of a hypothetical kind of a tap on the shoulder that we give, and they give to themselves, to each other. Let's say if they appraise each other, they encourage each other. So positive reinforcement and positive feedback. Now, feedback is generally speaking. So a lot of people sometimes, I have a particular kind of view to feedback, and because some people, they see feedback kind of revengeful sometimes, and but I always see feedback as something constructive. Feedback cannot but only be constructive. It should be as such, because there is it's kind of a mirror. Sometimes I don't see things in myself, and others, they see it in me. But the way to convey this is what makes it different. So it's a skill to learn for some. And I've learned even the feed forward. The feedback is always backwards. So the feed forward is kind of what should be done instead. Here is it, plus the solution. So what do you think of this?
I definitely prefer feed forward to feedback. I've never really been a big fan of feedback, either receiving it myself or giving it to others. I definitely prefer, and maybe that's because I worked in development and lots of teacher training type projects. So that in Malaysia, for example, it was very much feed forward. It was, okay, let's think about next time, reflect on this and think about next time, rather than just kind of, what did you do? I mean, it doesn't matter what you did. It's done now. You can't change it. Whatever happened in the last 45 minutes is gone. It's history.
Yeah.
Let's think about, reflect on that. And I think, and one part of what you're saying there is that a core element of that feed forward should be confidence building. It shouldn't be destroying people's confidence. It should be making them feel like, when I go to do it differently next time, I'm positive about that and I feel confident about doing that. And he's given me an idea or a new way of thinking about it, or he's challenged me in some particular way. I think that's a really a good way to look at it. And when it comes to students, I would certainly add what I said before, is that it shouldn't just be, well, you got an A, fantastic. No one in the long run, no one's going to care that you got an A. But did you help the 3 guys over there that got D's to get C's? Because that's actually a quality that is really useful in the world. If we want to create positive change, we need to help other people to do better, I think.
Great. Thank you very much for answering the question, Nathan. And my question now is, I'm going to get back to education. So I'm going to ask you, do you think Nathan is different uh, before following this career path, or if ever you have followed a different career path, what would it be? So I think always nuance. So what do you think?
Yeah.
First step, like final result, same, or if it's different, how would it be?
Because of the river analogy that I used at the very beginning, I guess it's hard to know. Would I have taken different twists and turns, but still been here, me today? I don't know. It's a really difficult one to know. I mean, I'm extremely happy that I am where I am. I love doing what I do. Um, I love working for Macmillan Education and Springer Nature. They're a really great company to work for, and I think that really makes a difference as well. Having, I guess, a respect for who you work for and who you work with. Having a good manager is an important part of, what makes us happy at work. So I'm really lucky that I work with such great colleagues that are really open and encouraging, and they've all got a really good growth mindset, I think. So that makes a difference. If I wasn't doing this, I would probably be in something creative. I like, creating animations. I'm a pretty good photographer. So I'd probably be doing either something like that, or if I ever had the support as a kid, I probably could have been quite a good sports person. I was a pretty good golfer when I was young. I'm okay now, but tennis, these types of sports, I was pretty good at. So I think if I'd had a lot of focus and support, which is hard, I didn't grow up in that kind of background. I didn't grow up in that kind of household. So, I've seen people that, their family were able to invest a lot of time. If you think about becoming, a professional anything, but let's just say I was on the cusp, let's say, of I could have been a very good golfer. Maybe I could have earned a living from it. But, the number of, it's not just about the number of hours that you put in. It's, having the ability to be able to travel to play. Equipment is expensive, memberships are expensive, these types of things. So you do need the luxury, I think, of opportunity and support, to be able to flourish in those types of things. But I guess, yeah, that was probably where I would be. Probably something creative. I'd be in marketing, which I am now. So.
You're good at.
Probably.
Yeah. My next question is related to Nathan, and allow me to ask you. So, do you have children, Nathan?
I don't. No.
Yeah.
2 dogs. No kids.
Yeah. So now the question is related to you and your daughters. So, would you like reflect the unfulfilled parts of Nathan in the way you bring up your daughters, or you just lead them towards finding their own ikigai in life? How would you do that?
I don't have any daughters. Sorry, I maybe misheard. I have 2 dogs, not 2 daughters.
I'm sorry. So let's say
we can,
2 daughters.
Sorry. We can think of it in the hypothetical.
Yeah,
sense.
hypothetically speaking. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully I will have a daughter one day. So, I think that I would be pretty open to them finding their own ikigai, with guidance, I think. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, great. Because some parents sometimes there are some unfulfilled dreams, that parents they haven't fulfilled in their life, like being a pianist, being a ballerina, being whatsoever, and they just impose this on their kids. No, you're gonna do this and not that, and but the kids wants to pursue a different path from a parent. So, do you think we should mirror or be a shadow of parents, or what do you think of the cultural part and the way we're brought up, the conditioning we go through, be it in family, in school? How can let me frame a question and so that that is clear for you. So how do you think a person can find his ikigai according to what I've discussed together today? So and we'll wrap up after this.
I get the point. And I mean, first of all, I'm definitely 100% not that person. I'm not very imposing. I'm very open-minded. yeah, I would be very, very free, I think, with my kids about finding out what they're interested in and guiding them and giving them a range of opportunities to allow them to be able to choose. We can only choose if we actually know things exist and we've had the opportunity to have a go. So, yeah, I think, as they're growing up, lots of variety, giving them the chance. At the same time, you've got to teach them, perseverance, because if you do want to be good at something, you do have to work hard at it and you do need to put the
Mhm.
hours in.
The
You want to be a
effort.
pianist, it's hours and hours and hours of just, playing the same chords over and over again, but seeing that there's a purpose to that, I guess. The cultural part is the tricky part, I guess, because there are lots of, and because I've lived in lots of these different places in the world, I've seen lots of cultural ways of approaching this, and it can be very rigid in lots of cultures. Expectations on kids are very high. Yeah, it's a really difficult one to challenge. But I guess that's part of the job of schools as well, is to help parents who are educating them as well. They're part of the process. So, helping them to understand what their kids are interested in and how they're developing their belief systems and all these different types of things. So I guess it's about communication. It's communicating, but it's very challenging. Yeah, I can
It
understand
is,
that.
actually. And I hope that the Ikigai podcast can be kind of, I don't want to say motivation, because I know that you're motivating yourself. I'm not the person who's going to motivate you more about finding your purpose in life, but I hope this can be a reflection on how to further, uh, let's say, frame your purpose in life in the future, because it's a work in process, so it's a never ending process. So and I've met you, Nathan, today, and it's 2023, and I don't know, maybe we can meet in person after 5 or 10 years. So and we'll see how this evolves in the future. So thank you very much for being my guest today. So I'll let you add any point if you want.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And it's so interesting to sit and think about those past experiences and reflect on our outlook in life, thinking about what we love. When it comes to that, it's personal passions, family, having good priorities, I think is key. You know, it's good to work and have direction, but when we're old, and hopefully we are old at one point, but we look back, there are certain things that we're going to remember. So I think it's keeping that in mind. When I'm old and I look back, what are the core things that I'm going to look back on my life? Is it going to be, tasks that I did at work, or, hours I spent on lesson plans? It's not going to be those things. It's going to be playing with your kids in the park and teaching them how to walk and run and ride a bike, and languages, teach them a variety of languages. And like I say, thinking about what you're good at, can you get paid for that? Thankfully, I'm in a privileged position that I do get paid for what I am good at. And the last one was what the world needs, I think, wasn't it? So yeah, well, I don't know if it needs anything from me, but hopefully,
They
the
do, of
mindset
course.
the mindset that I have hopefully offers inspiration and thought-provoking questions to people, and they take something away from that. I really love when people get in touch with me and say, you did something and it's inspired me to do something else. Those are the things that I will remember, I think.
Thank you very much. And this is, by the way, an unforgettable experience, the fact of having you. And I will still remember the today's episode from my podcast. And thank you very much for being my guest, Nathan. And I hope this won't be the last time we talk together. And thank you very much, Nathan, for being my guest. And I hope you enjoyed the Ikigai podcast. So thank you very much. And I really hope to see you again and in person in an upcoming ELT event, be it in Tunisia or anywhere in the world. And
Thank you
yes,
so much. It's a real pleasure. And yeah, I definitely look forward to meeting you when I get a chance to come to Tunisia, for sure.
Thank you very much. So that's it for our listeners, and thank you very much. So that was the end of our today's podcast, and I hope that you enjoyed the episode just like the way that I did. And stay blessed and stay safe, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.